Welcome to Beat Diabetes. I'm Dennis Pollock, and I wanted to be sharing with you in this session about a comment or two that I've received under my videos. One of the things that amazed me was just how many comments we get under our videos. Oftentimes, I watch YouTubers that try to encourage you, almost beg you to comment under their videos because they know that YouTube appreciates that and they'll promote videos that have a lot of comments. I've never really had to do much begging. People just love to pitch in and say things, mostly stuff that I agree with, sometimes not. In this case, this is not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing. He's just sharing his experience, and I thought I'd pass it on to you. He says this, my CGM averaged 5.7. But he says, I went to the doctor. He showed me a 6.6 from drawn blood. So big difference between a 5.7 and a 6.6. And he wondered what happened. He says, I thought I was doing great. And the doctor looked at his numbers and agreed, yeah, your average is 5.7 according to the numbers that you're getting on your CGM. But his response was, the doctor's response was, this is the best we have now, and it's not always going to be correct. Well, I have to agree with the doctor. As I mentioned in a recent video, I was really happy with my first sensor from the Dexcom Stello, and it was just running neck and neck with my regular glucose meter where I stick my finger. But the second sensor was considerably higher, started out about 20 points higher, and then went down to 15, eventually kind of settled into about 12 points higher. So again, quoting from the doctor, this is the best we have now. It's not always going to be correct. He's right. We cannot expect perfection. Even our regular glucose meters, the kind you stick your fingers with, they're not perfect. And some of them are better than others. I've kind of settled into the Freestyle Precision Neo. To me, it's pretty good, and it's very consistent within itself. I rarely get surprised. But, one thing we know is that even an imperfect CGM or an imperfect glucose meter is better than none at all. And they'll give you an idea of where you're going and which foods affect you the most. Even if you're 10 points off from perfect accuracy, it's still better to be 10 points off than to have no clue at all what's going on. So I highly recommend glucose meters and CGMs. Obviously, the more accurate, the better, but whatever you can get. And I was thinking about Dr. Richard Bernstein. You know, when he was starting out, there were no regular glucose meters like the kind you buy in the pharmacy. There definitely were no CGMs in those days. I don't remember when it was. I think this might have been in the 60s. And so he found out you can buy a glucose meter. And he was an adult. He was an engineer at the time. His wife was a doctor. She was a psychiatrist, but she had her MD, which psychiatrists have. And he saw in a medical journal an ad for a glucose reading machine. But the problem was you had to be a doctor. You had to send in on your physician stationery and ask for it. So she got it for him. And he showed it in one of his videos. It's like over 3 pounds in weight, big unwieldy device. Probably not that accurate. I've never heard him really say, but it got him started. And I mean, he has revolutionized the diabetes industry. And he has shaken the world with his testimonies of the things he's learned. And it all started to that big old heavy monster glucose meter. And one thing you can say, however accurate it was or was not, it was a lot better than him just guessing what's going on with my body. So, and it's the same with me. A lot of my early years when I was testing, I didn't have much money. And I would go for about the cheapest one you could find. There was one that came in a little small cylinder, the strips, and the head of the thing was the actual meter. And you'd pull the strips out and stick it in the head and and you test your blood sugar. I doubt if it was all that accurate, but it could sure tell me what was spiking my glucose and what wasn't. So the reality is this: we already pretty much know. And let me take out the words pretty much. We know what spikes glucose, and that's carbs and sugars. Processed carbs are the worst, but carbs of any kind are going to drive your blood sugar high. The point of the meter is to kind of confirm what we suspect when we try new foods, or if we're just brand new in this game and you just don't have any clue about what spikes foods or not, and you hear Dennis Pollock saying we should cut our carbs, and you're not sure if he's a charlatan or he's just stupid, or maybe he knows what he's talking about. You get a glucose meter and you start testing, and you test a high-carb meal about an hour and 15 minutes after you finish eating it, and then you eat a low-carb meal, test about an hour and 15 minutes after you finish, test before you eat, and then an hour and 15 minutes after you conclude your meal, and compare different foods. Well, let's compare this with this, with this, with this. What are you getting? You're getting input. You're getting data. You're finding out how your body responds to foods, and you'll learn a whole lot. So, sadly, they're not perfect. By any means. The CGMs are not perfect. The glucose meters are not perfect. They will get better, but for right now, we deal with what we have. They are a whole lot better. I don't care how badly off they are. They're a whole lot better than not testing at all and just walking around clueless about what's really going on with your body and wondering which diabetes guru, which expert, which doctor, which nutritionist is really telling me what I need to know. And there's a lot of confusion in the whole realm of how do you reverse diabetes. Some say you cannot reverse it at all. And others say you can, but you got to go vegan. Others say you can, but you got to go low carb. Others say you can, but you've got to go carnivore. And with all that confusion, it's kind of nice to have a non-biased machine, a glucose meter or a CGM that has no bias. They have no skin in the game. They have no reason to lie to you, except that they're not perfect, and they can be slightly inaccurate or maybe more than slightly, but they've got no bias at all. So you're saying, all right, this guy says it's this diet, and this one says it's keto, this one says it's carnivore, this one says give up all the animal products and all will be well. Let's see what my meter says. And you're off to the races. You're basically unstoppable. You are on your way to beating diabetes once you start testing seriously. Now, let me tell you a secret, not really too much of a secret. If I didn't have this channel and I wasn't heavily involved in the promotion of how to beat diabetes and trying to set diabetics free from the bondage of this monster, if I wasn't involved in all that, if I was just an ordinary Joe or an ordinary dentist just minding my own business and not wanting to be diabetic, not wanting to get my legs cut off, just an ordinary guy, never lecturing, never talking about it, never doing videos like this with a microphone in front of my face. If I was just ordinary, I wouldn't test myself nearly as much. I pretty much know what to do and what to eat and what not to eat. There would be a few cases where I'd try something new and be a little suspicious, or one of the big reasons I would still test somewhat is all the keto products. And there'd be some that boast about, being low glycemic and some that boast about keto friendly. And I'd say, all right, let's see what my glucose meter says about you, fella. You boast as though you're not going to raise blood sugar at all. Let's just see about that. So yeah, I'd still do it, but I wouldn't do it nearly so much as I do now. So there you go. If you followed our ministry and YouTube channels very long, you know that we're involved in many different missions and ministries. We sponsor our popular African Jesus Conference, which is a video series of 20 different video Bible studies and teachings to train African ministers about the paramount importance of teaching and preaching Jesus, as well as personally abiding in Jesus. Benedict and I create YouTube videos of our Bible studies, and we also produce audio podcasts of these studies. I teach a weekly video devotional on all kinds of Bible topics. We sponsor free medical clinics in Africa, along with providing needed food and clothes for African widows and orphans. We need your help. Please consider donating through our link in the description below this video. The Support Beat Diabetes link is a personal gift to Benedict and me for our work in diabetes education, And the Spirit of Grace Ministries link is a way of donating to our ministry efforts in teaching the Word of God to the nations and blessing the people of Africa.